inflation. Did your cost from 100 euro increase to 109 euro? No, it did not. Because when they are talking about inflation, they're putting everything, houses, businesses, everything in one pot, and then they take the average. We personally, we know that in buying food inflation is so much more higher than 10%, 9%. And that's where you need to ask yourself, hey, is that money really going to reach? And they're warning you right here. And what they also tell you is that please emphasize that, and this is a calculation 1,919 if you times it by 0.61, which is value depreciating from 100 euro to 61 euro. That means it's like today having 1,170 and 98 cent. Okay. And that while you are right now earning 3,500. And then after this, they are going to deduct Sozialversicherung. They are going to deduct tax and they are going to deduct Pflege. I'm not doing this presentation to break your heart because they are even stating here that there are ways and measures you need to take to compensate and set everything in place. They actually stated in this document. And I did not mark it, but if you look in between those two, they will say you see, let me see out. I can oh yeah. So pen, there we go. So watch this. If you look over here, it will say, please Berücksichtigung, consider the fact that okay, you need to do you need to also have things like private pension insurance. You need to consider the fact that the money that you are getting is not going to be enough for your future pension. They are telling you here. So if after 30 years you're coming to say that, oh, I did not know, they will say, since you were 27, we've been sending you this letter every year. How could you say that you did not know? We've warned you. You understand? Bureaucratically speaking, they've done everything right. But who reads those letters? I speak German fluently. Before I got into this area or I started thinking about those things, I never thought of ever reading this document. Believe me. And most people don't, not even the Germans, unless they're aware of it. And most of the time, oh, actually, I marked it. I didn't notice. Okay. And most of the time, people notice this issue when it's too late. If you are 64 and you now realize your pension is not enough, what are you going to do in 3 years? Believe me, the earlier, the better. And having a real estate or a house is also an element to help you because when you have an apartment, do you need to pay rent when you're in old age? And if you're not paying rent and you only get 1,000 euro, can you survive?
No.
Technically, yes. If the 1,000 euro is only chop money and you've paid your house and you don't need to pay the mortgage anymore, that means all the money is left is only chop money. You understand? By the way, don't be surprised if I'm looking down because the presentation is in front of me and I can see the camera and everything beneath me. So don't be surprised when I'm looking downstairs. Okay, I said downstairs, down. So as said, I still want to give a little bit time for Q&A, but as said, this topic is very sensitive. And as said, inflation and this picture, everyone can relate to it. Everyone can relate to this picture, especially for the people who've been here for at least 10, 20 years. I remember when I used to give wifey money for shopping, it looked more like on the left, on the far left. Today, if you're going shopping, you can still, with that same 50 euro, you can see the bottom of your kinderwagen, I said, of your shopping car. You can definitely see that. Before, at least it was full. So just think about it. And that's why people are struggling. And that's why people are really, especially the old people, are struggling. And today, it's a coincidence, but today I took one guy, I met him, we were talking, and then I took him across to my office while I was driving to the office because he was living nearby. I've been talking to him and whatnot. And he works at Aldi as a security man. And this guy was telling me about how many people have been stealing and being caught. He said, at least before it used to be like 60 to 70 people who were caught every week stealing. 80 people. Now, the average is 100 people a week. 100 people to 110 people getting caught stealing food at Aldi. I was like, huh? 400 people. And those are the ones who are getting caught. Oh, we're not talking about the ones who are not getting caught. But it's so alarming to see. And he said he actually caught one woman. This woman was 92 years old. The things that she stole was worth 13 euro. For someone to get out of their comfort zone, honestly, I'm not going to blame a 90-year-old, 92-year-old woman who does it, because then I know that she's desperate. And it's something that, honestly, I'm not saying all this to scare you people. I'm saying all this to raise awareness. Because sometimes we get caught so much in our work, our hustle, hustle, hustle. We don't sit down to think about it. Because most of the things I'm saying, I'm sure. Now thinking about you, be like, I didn't need Godfred to tell me that. Actually, sitting down right now in calm, thinking about it, makes me understand this problem. But we are most of the time, especially when we are not from here, caught in a lot of stress. We're here, visa, children, language. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. But still, there's a saying that lack of knowledge will not protect you from the punishment. At least that's a bad translation, but at least you understand what I mean. And
Yeah.
that's why I always talk about this, because at the end, and this is just, and you can even Google this, is it shows how the economy is growing. Expenditure, expenditure, expenditure. We're in a consumption environment and things are being bought. And this is actually the transition from inflation to investment. When we talk about investment, like typical investment, shares and so forth, bonds and so forth, you are investing in the economy. I already said that everything gets more expensive, right? So if everything is getting more expensive, are the businesses making more profit or less profit?
Can I guess?
Yes, please.
I guess they might be making a bit of loss, but not so much compared to the individual person who is going to pay more.
Okay. Technically speaking, it's a good assumption, but they are going to make more profit. The main thing is at the end, they increase the prices because everything is getting more expensive and they can increase it as they want it to survive. Believe me, I remember 2012, 2011. The reason I remember so much, I was still in uni. And it was like, man, if you don't have an iPhone, you don't have an iPhone. To have an iPhone, you were guy guy. iPhones were 400 euros, 400, 500 euros. At that time, too, it was not common to take phone on contract. That was iPhone 4, iPhone 4S. I remember because I bought one. And at that point, it was tough to get an iPhone. Now, people are buying iPhones for how much? 1,500, 1,200. But because they're paying it on a monthly basis, they think it's nothing. Believe me, with 1,500, I can buy a car, repair it, and drive it. I used to buy cars for like, I have mechanical background. So I used to buy cars when I was a student. I used to buy a car for like 400 euros, buy parts, repair it in total, spend like 700 euros, and then drive from A to B. I survived. The car didn't get no accidents. The tires didn't fall off. I was good. I got my turf. It was all good. And now we're using that to actually buy phones. And then the iPhone was more than a MacBook. I was like, huh? A MacBook will cost 1,200 and you buy a phone. What can a MacBook do? What can a phone do? But it's because supply and demand. So based on this, one thing which I hope I also have in this graph is, yes, I do, is the economy grows and things get more expensive and the economy adjusts accordingly. Example, when we talk investment, I always say invest in what you know. Okay. Here are examples. Honestly speaking, Ukraine crisis, the oil crisis, everything became more expensive, right? One question you need to ask yourself: did people stop buying fuel? Fuel became more expensive. Did people stop buying it? Technically, no, because you still need your car to get from A to B.
Yeah.
Yes? Were you guys still brushing your teeth? Or did you say, I don't have enough money, don't let me brush my teeth?
Did you even notice the toilet roll issues during the Corona time? People were still
I
buying it.
forgot
It
about it.
was terrible.
And they were even buying it more than before.
Yes,
And they
so
didn't care about the
expensive.
price. And that's the whole point. In crisis, our survival mechanisms, food, toothpaste, petrol, ice cream once in a while, you want to enjoy yourself. You're still going to buy those things. And that's why the economy always grows. And they can adjust the prices how they want. You still buy it. You might not buy as much, but you buy it. Because would you tell your children that, oh, inflation, today we're only going to eat water and bread? It's not going to happen. Okay. And that's one thing we definitely need to consider. So, one thing you need to understand is, and I'm going to jump one skip, is when we talk about investment, okay, investment is the economy going up. And I'm going to explain this in simpler graph. When people talk about investment, they make a lot of noise. Oh, investment is the best thing that you can have, which is true. But investment, you need to consider that one fact. It goes up and down. If we look at this graph, it goes from 2009 all the way to 21. I know, actually 22, the war. They say, oh, over those 11 years, we made a profit of 257%. Investment is the real deal. And I will agree. But most people don't explain it properly. If you look at this graph, this green and this blue graph, do you see those ups and downs? And if you look more to the end, actually, let me get my pen out again. If you look more to the end, you're going to realize that there was a big drop over here. That's when people's heart stops. You know, if you follow this up and you check the date, no, actually, this date is wrong. This is not okay. Let me cancel this. This is not to this. If you go down here, the line down here, whoops, this is 2020 March. March 2020. Does anyone remember what happened in March 2020?
COVID.
COVID. Everyone stopped working. Everything froze. And what happened to the investment? It plumbed.
Dropped. Yeah.
But regardless on if it plumps or not, after everyone recovered from the shock, did people start buying food again? They
No.
did not go to Aldi, but they started buying them online.
Hmm.
And guess what? Within a short time, the investment started going up again. And before you knew, in less than 1 year, we were back to where we used to be. And the economy is still growing. And then, watch this. This was 2020, beginning of 2022. You remember what happened beginning of 2022? Exactly 2 years ago? Ukraine war. It's already been 2 years. Same principle. It went down. Believe me, now it's gone up. In the last 12 months, most of the investment that we suggested have increased by 31%. It's the fastest increase in a long time. 31% in 12 months. Rarely happens. Don't use that as your base. Rarely happens. But the thing is, what people don't explain if it comes to investment is what I technically already did is investment goes up and down. This is the same graph. It's going up and down, up and down, up and down. And we need to consider that. And that's how investment works. There are a lot of movements in there. You understand? But over time, all those movements, the economy always goes up. It goes up. Normally, if I was doing an investment seminar, you see, I'll show you over 20 years, over 40 years, over 80 years. And you see that overall, the graph goes up like this, but it still goes up over time because they will always adjust the prices to the current situation. That's why we all know right now what I can buy with 10,000 today in 15, 20 years, I will not be able to buy the same thing. We already know that because economy grows. The iPhone is never gonna be 1,500 in 10 years. If they're still there, they would say that, Omo, please give me 3,000. And what are we gonna do? We'll say, oh, I'm only paying 100 a month. No wahala. Because salary will adjust also. Just keep that in mind. So, as a matter of fact, summarizing, and it took a bit longer because more profit. Exactly. Um, I actually extended it a little bit, but you can see this topic is actually a sensitive topic, and we actually in this case went through the seminar actually, or this seminar, this lessons actually a whole hour, because it's a topic we should not ignore. I'll still leave the floor open for questions and answers. Unfortunately, there were not that many questions that came in. That's why it became more of a monologue. But I hope still the value and the understanding of what is important came across.